All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into a wild paradox. Why is it that even highly profitable, booming businesses can suddenly just go bankrupt? It happens a lot more often than you think, and it almost always comes down to one massive mistake: ignoring their financial lifeblood.
It's a great question, right? You look at their income statements and they're literally making money hand over fist. But here's the catch. Usually the underlying issue is a cash flow crisis. A business can be super profitable on paper, but if it doesn't have the actual cash on hand to pay its suppliers or its employees today, well, the door's closed tomorrow. The secret to preventing that kind of disaster lies in understanding and totally mastering what financial experts call working capital.
We're breaking this whole thing down into 5 quick chapters today: anatomy of working capital, driving business success, the operating cycle explained, financing and risk trade-offs, and finally, smart payables management. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Anatomy of working capital.
So every single business requires capital for two main purposes. Think about it like this. If fixed capital is the skeleton of the business, the rigid structure that holds everything up, then working capital is the blood. It's the revolving funds that are continuously transforming. It goes from cash into inventory, into receivables, and then right back into cash again. It is the vital energy you absolutely need to finance day-to-day operations and keep those assets in healthy circulation.
To really get this, let's look at the difference side by side. Fixed capital is blocked perpetually in long-term assets. This is the big money that buys your factory, your heavy machinery, or your land. Working capital, though, is highly fluid. It's the cash that pays the daily wages, covers the electric bill, and buys the raw materials you need to actually manufacture your goods today. Because, let's be real, you cannot pay your workers with a brick from your factory. You need working capital.
Now, we measure this financial lifeblood in 2 primary ways. First up is gross working capital. That's simply the sum total of all your current assets: your cash, bank balances, inventory, bills receivable, all of it. Then there's net working capital. This is where we take those current assets and subtract your current liabilities, the debts you owe within the next year. This is absolutely crucial because your net working capital reveals your true operational surplus. It tells you point blank if you have enough positive flow to cover your immediate debts without panicking. We also classify working capital by time. You have permanent or fixed working capital, which is the absolute bare minimum baseline of assets you need to carry out normal operations and just survive. But then you have temporary or variable working capital. This is the extra padding you need for exceptional or seasonal spikes. Think of a toy retailer. They need massive temporary spikes in inventory right before the holidays to handle the rush.
Section 2. Driving business success.
Having adequate working capital is honestly kind of a superpower. It does way more than just keep the lights on. It maintains business goodwill because, hey, you're always paying your suppliers on time. And because of that, those suppliers make sure you get a rock-solid, steady supply of raw materials. It strengthens your overall solvency and helps you face contingencies. Sudden economic downturn, natural disaster. Strong working capital is your buffer. Plus, if a massive opportunity pops up, like grabbing bulk materials at a crazy discount, you actually have the cash ready to pull the trigger.
But how much do you actually need? Well, the exact amount varies wildly. A heavy manufacturing firm needs way more working capital tied up in raw materials than a simple retail shop. Scale matters too, obviously. But you also have to watch external factors. During high inflation, the cost to replace your inventory surges, so your working capital needs shoot right up. On the flip side, if your operating efficiency is top-notch and you have very little waste, you can actually shrink the amount of capital you need to keep the engine running.
Section 3. The operating cycle explained.
Okay, the operating cycle. This is literally the heartbeat of the business. It's a continuous 5-step loop. It kicks off with an initial cash spend. You buy raw materials and you pay your suppliers. Next, you spend time changing those materials into work in progress and then into finished products. Step 4, you sell those products, often on credit. And finally, step 5, you collect the cash from your customers. Boom. The cycle is complete, and your cash is returned, hopefully with a nice little profit attached.
There is a fundamental rule of finance we need to highlight here. Basically, a company with an extremely short operating cycle requires way less cash to maintain its operations, making it much more attractive. Think about it. If it takes you 100 days to go from buying materials to getting paid, your cash is trapped in a cage for 100 days. But if you can shorten that cycle to just 30 days, your money is working so much faster. Accelerating this cycle frees up massive amounts of working capital that you can use to actually grow the business instead of just treading water.
Section 4.
financing, and risk trade-offs.
So where do businesses get this short-term cash? Well, they can tap into a few different lifelines. The easiest and most common is trade credit. That's just buying goods on account and paying the supplier later. You've also got customer advances or flexible bank overdrafts to plug immediate gaps. And for the heavy hitters, large, highly rated corporations, they can issue commercial paper, which is essentially a short-term, unsecured promissory note. But remember, every single one of these sources comes with its own cost and conditions.
When it comes to financing these current assets, managers usually play by the Goldilocks principle, picking one of three approaches. The conservative approach relies heavily on long-term funds, even for short-term needs. It's super safe, but incredibly expensive. The aggressive approach relies on tons of short-term funds. It's cheap, but highly risky, because you are constantly scrambling to refinance. Then you have the hedging approach. This tries to get it just right, matching short-term finance to temporary needs and long-term finance to permanent needs.
Ultimately, whatever approach you pick, it's a strict risk-return trade-off. You're walking a tightrope, balancing the risk of technical insolvency, which means running out of cash and defaulting, against the higher cost of safe long-term financing that just eats away at your profit margins. You want enough flow to survive, for sure, but you don't want so much idle, expensive cash sitting around that your business loses its competitive edge.
Section 5. Smart Payables Management.
All right, let's flip the script and talk about the money going out. This is payables management. Payables represent the actual cash a firm owes its vendors. Now, optimizing this outflow, deciding exactly when and how to pay these bills, is a massive part of effective cash management. If you manage your payables wisely, you can significantly boost your company's overall cash position without having to beg the bank for another loan.
Using trade credit is a classic move, but it's totally a double-edged sword. On the plus side, it acts like an interest-free loan, letting you defer payments and hedge against inflation. But as always, there's no such thing as a free lunch. The biggest hidden trap is the discount forgone. Say a supplier offers you a 2% discount if you pay in 10 days, but you decide to wait 30 days just to hold on to your cash. By missing out on those savings, you've essentially just paid a really steep, invisible interest rate.
To keep track of how well a company is handling all this, analysts use a very specific metric called the payables turnover ratio. You calculate it by taking the net credit purchases and dividing it by the average accounts payable. Simply put, this formula measures exactly how many times a year a company pays its creditors.
And we can take that ratio one step further to make it really intuitive. If you divide the number of days in a year, 365, by that payables turnover ratio, you get the average payment period. In plain English, this tells us exactly how many days, on average, it takes a business to settle its invoices. If the number is too low, you're probably paying too early and needlessly draining your liquidity. But if it's too high, you're definitely ticking off your suppliers.
So how do the absolute best companies strike that perfect balance? They centralize their accounts payable so everything follows strict standards. They use supplier portals to stop random off-the-books buying, and they automate the heck out of the process using paperless systems. But the real golden rule here? Manage that invoice timing perfectly. You pay exactly on time, not too early, so you keep your liquidity, but never, ever late, so you protect those absolutely vital supplier relationships.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final critical thought. We've seen exactly how working capital keeps the gears turning, from that heartbeat operating cycle to the delicate balance of short-term financing. But let's take it out of the textbook and look at your own organization or the companies you invest in. If working capital truly is the lifeblood of a business, is your company's financial circulation robust enough right now to keep the heart beating when the unexpected happens? Thanks for exploring this with us, and keep questioning the numbers behind the business.